Recently, I received word that a Streets of Rage film adaptation is getting made. What? Of course it is! In fact, it's been completed. Streets of Rage 2, premiering on YouTube May 14th. Actually, that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about an actual live-action film based on the Streets of Rage video game franchise. Just to get you up to speed in case you're not familiar with my channel, Streets of Rage is so far my most popular film. It was based on a beat-em-up video game by SEGA, released in 1991 on the SEGA Genesis, known as the Mega Drive outside of North America. It was a big success and allowed for 3 sequels spanning multiple platforms. With its concept, I've always felt that the series was ripe for a cinematic interpretation. I can imagine all the epic battle scenes that we would witness, the great storyline that would accompany it, and a very welcome cast of characters. From the critical reception my Plotagon animated version received, I would say I've done a good job with the first film and aim to have improved with the second. But then comes news that an actual studio is looking to make a cinematic interpretation. Of course, Sega's reasoning for this adaptation being made was to follow in the success of their Sonic the Hedgehog film franchise. Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 have seen success at the box office, with a third film and a Paramount Plus series in the works. Naturally, with that kind of popularity, Sega wants to see other franchises of theirs being adapted, such as Streets of Rage, for example, which will be written by Derek Kolstad, creator of the John Wick films. So how exactly do I feel about this, being someone who's also making Streets of Rage adaptations, though not in a professional setting? Well, here are some things I would like to see from the live-action Streets of Rage movie. Now, keep in mind that it's all my personal opinion. I'm not saying for sure that the movie is going to replicate these elements guaranteed. Most of them would likely be ignored. If they want to make their film a different way, that's fine with me as long as they can make it work. Again, it's not guaranteed they will make it work. Not every film lives up to people's expectations. Being a fan of the video games myself, I'm free to express my ideal Streets of Rage movie. If the live-action version sucks, at least you have my version if you're satisfied with that. Anyway, let's begin. First off, I imagine Streets of Rage as a franchise, mainly because the original video game has sequels. 3 sequels so far. So for this first Streets of Rage movie, I think it would work best if we start with the plot of the first game, then work our way across. The first game's plot is pretty straightforward. Criminal syndicate overthrows the city government, taking control of all business and operations, including the police force. Crime rates skyrocket. 3 young police officers resign and become vigilantes to destroy the syndicate. Boom. Plot. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But with development to the story and characters, you can make it work. Especially taking note that the first 2 games don't have cutscenes, meaning you're going to have to make stuff up anyway. Just try not to deviate too far from what the main focus is. As the series continues, the plot of the other games should be followed with accuracy, making changes and additions necessary to make it stand out as a feature film. One definite thing you'll want to follow in terms of the video games would be the action. Well choreographed, gripping action that is sure to warrant a lot of rewatches. What I would like to see in a Streets of Rage movie is action that takes itself seriously. I don't think a campy tone with the action sequences would work that well. Double Dragon is proof of that, where there's stupid jokes scattered throughout, especially in the action. It feels more like a bad parody than anything else. With Streets of Rage, I don't want to see the same mistake being repeated. I want the action to be something you can take seriously. I imagine the villain of the series, Mr. X, as a man of mysterious aura. This is a character that shouldn't really have development or backstory. No reason behind his actions, no tragic past or anything else, just an intimidating bad guy that makes his intentions anonymous and only lives to spread chaos, much like the Joker. In the first game, you don't see Mr. X till the final battle. The second game's prologue has his face on display as the story is laid out in text. The third game features the same appearance for Mr. X, though this one is a robot copy, and he's later revealed to have just been reduced to a brain in a jar, which I have a hard time taking seriously. What is this, Ninja Turtles? But anyway, Mr. X in the film should be just like his game counterpart, a mysterious crime boss with a lot of power at his fingertips, and in his Tommy gun. One last comment, and this is just how I personally feel. I would like for the film to have the feel of an action film that came out in the 90s. Examples for inspiration would be The Fugitive, Air Force One, and the Pierce Brosnan Bond films, particularly GoldenEye. Those are films that take themselves seriously with their action sequences and story, which is why I've chosen those films as examples. But anyway, the reason I wanted to feel like a 90s action film would be to match up with the decade in which the first Streets of Rage game debuted. Besides, it was around the 80s and 90s that the action film genre was especially starting to get popular. It's true that even before the 80s, action films were a big deal, but the 80s and 90s brought us the Terminator, Rambo, Indiana Jones, Batman, and plenty other popular action films. Streets of Rage should feel like some of those films. It's no guarantee that all these suggestions would be taken into account, but I'm just sharing what I see as my ideal Streets of Rage film adaptation. If the first Streets of Rage film is successful at the box office, then it's a no-brainer that sequels would also be in development, even if the first film doesn't really impress. I'm just hoping it will. If they want to go a different route, that's okay, just as long as they do it right. In the meantime, be sure to watch my adaptation of Streets of Rage 2 coming to YouTube May 14th, 8 o'clock Pacific.